When the smart monitor in my foster son's room activated, I didn't call the cops. I called his state caseworker. My phone vibrated violently at 3:15 a.m., nearly falling off the nightstand and shocking me awake. I glanced at the screen. It was an alert from the nursery cam. It read, "Audio detected. A woman I didn't recognize, wearing a rain slicker, was standing just outside the window, whispering into the glass. Is the astronaut docked?" That phrase was a highly classified coping mechanism I use for my 8-year-old autistic foster son during his sensory meltdowns. There was absolutely no way anyone else knew it. The woman waited for a few minutes in the freezing rain before melting back into the shadows. I jumped out of bed and sprinted down the hall. I didn't think. I got to his room and found him safe, fast asleep under his sheets. I quickly jammed a dowel into his window track and deadbolted the bedroom door. My heart hammered against my ribs. The Astronaut was a game we invented on his first night here to stop his night terrors. I told him his bed was a spaceship. The nickname was our sacred secret. I didn't sleep a wink. First thing in the morning, as soon as the precinct opened, I drove down. They watched the video, then politely told me there was nothing they could do. The woman was outside the property line, and childhood nicknames aren't legally confidential. I felt a little better, but that comfort lasted exactly one day. The next night, another alert flashed on my phone. The same woman in the same yellow slicker came even closer to the window mesh. "The noise-canceling headphones are charging," the woman whispered. "The green ones work better anyway." I felt ice water replace my blood. The green headphones were hidden inside my locked home office drawer. I watched her vanish into the fog again. I called the police immediately. They added it to a file, told me to just keep my doors locked, and to call back if she actually breaks the glass. No cruisers came to patrol the street. I started sleeping on the floor right outside his door. My fiancé went from thinking this was a weird neighborhood prank to completely losing his mind. The woman kept showing up on the feed, dropping hyper-specific details about my son that were impossible to know. Things like his severe allergy to red dye, or his specific aversion to cotton tags. My fiancé started interrogating our neighbors like a madman. We were actually banned from the local park. We had to ask my sister to buy our groceries. I didn't sleep. I just watched the feed, waiting. The moment the bottom fell out was about 2 weeks later. The woman came back, didn't speak, just pressed a piece of paper against the glass. It had the address of the juvenile detention center where my son was originally found. The facility was classified. Then it hit me like a freight train. The only place I'd ever disclosed these specific details was during my mandatory state adoption screenings. The next morning, I called my caseworker's direct line. It went straight to a generic voicemail. I tried the main agency line. A recording said the extension was permanently disabled. I texted her personal cell, but it bounced back as an invalid number. I checked the state registry. Her license was scrubbed. I drove past her county office that afternoon. The windows were papered over, and the suite was listed for lease. Something was deeply wrong, and I needed answers. That night, I waited by the back patio with my fiancé's heavy mag light gripped in my hand. At the exact same time, the woman stepped onto the gravel. This time, I threw the door open and cornered her. The woman froze. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded. My voice was lethal. The woman just looked at me, trembling uncontrollably. "She said I'd get my kids back. You're not supposed to be awake." She started crying. "Who?" I asked, stepping closer. "The inspector. She said I could get custody of my twins if I proved you were an unfit mother. If I made you look crazy so you'd forfeit the boy," she sobbed. The police arrived, thanks to our silent alarm triggering. The woman didn't fight and looked completely broken. At the precinct, she confessed she was a desperate client of the same caseworker, who was paying her to psychologically torture me. But when the detectives tracked down the caseworker 2 days later, the woman denied everything, claimed her identity was stolen, and stated she never had a case file for my son. The woman in the slicker was diagnosed with severe psychosis and committed to a state ward. The investigation dead-ended, and I thought the nightmare was finally over. But one night, I was tucking my son into his sensory bed. He looked up at me in the dark and whispered, "Ground control to Major Tom." I froze. "We never used that song." I asked him where he heard that. "The nice lady in the closet told me," he replied. When I heard that, I knew the real game had just started.